So there we go. So day 22, we've got a new task for attack surface reduction. Threats are falling all around, or failing all around me. McSkidy wants to improve the security posture of Santa's network by learning from the recent attempts to disrupt Christmas. As a first step, she plans to implement a low-effort, high-value change that improves the security posture significantly. The learning outcomes, we're going to help McSkidy with her improvements. We'll learn some concepts and evaluate some steps to take. These will include understanding what an attack vector is, understanding the concept of an attack surface. We're going to get some practical examples of what an attack surface reduction technique that McSkidy can utilize to strengthen Santa's network is. And let's start. So attack vectors. An attack vector is a tool, technique, or a method used to attack a computer system or network. If we map the attack vectors to the physical world, attack vectors should be the weapons an adversary uses, like swords, arrows, hammers, etc. A non-exhaustive list of examples of an attack vector in cybersecurity include the following. So you can do phishing emails, deceptive emails that are often impersonating someone, asking the victim to perform an action that compromises their security, denial of service, or a distributed denial of service attack, sending so many requests to a website or a web application that it reaches the limits and it can't no longer serve legitimate requests. So resource exhaustion. Then web drive-by attacks, so flaws in web browsers that compromise the security of the victim by merely visiting a website. Unpatched vulnerability exploitation. Let's turn this down, it's gone like properly loud. There we go, that's better. Right, so an unpatched vulnerability exploitation is a flaw in an internet-facing infrastructure, such as the web server or network interface, that is exploited to take control of the infrastructure. So that's the vectors. So these are the methods of gaining a foothold, doing something to get into a system. Then you have your attack surface. So the attack surface is the surface area of the victim of the attack that can be impacted by an attack vector and cause damage. Taking forward our example of the physical world, the attack surface will include the unarmoured body of a soldier, which an attack from a sword or an arrow or a hammer can damage. In cybersecurity, the attack surface will generally contain all the following: an email server that is used for sending and receiving emails, an internet-facing web server that serves a website to visitors, end-user machines that people use to connect to the network, machines that can be manipulated and tricked into giving control of the network to an attacker through social engineering. So it's basically all of the systems, all of the endpoints, the network devices, absolutely every single piece of technology you've got exposed, and the people themselves. And then you've got attack surface reduction. So as we might notice, your attack surface cannot be eliminated short of running away from a battlefield. It can only be reduced. The Greek phalanx is an excellent example of what an attack surface reduction is. As seen in the picture, the front of the defending army is covered by their shields, whereas the walls of the pass cover the sides, leaving no room for an attacker to inflict damage on the defenders without running into the defences. This is how the Spartan army could hold back a larger Persian army for several days in the Battle of Thermopylae. However, this attack surface reduction works for weapons of that time. The technique will not impact the attack surface against modern weapons. Just send a nuke over the top. In cybersecurity, the most secure computer is one that is shut down and its cables removed. However, this is not feasible for running critical operation dependent on computers. Therefore, cybersecurity leaders aim to keep the operations running with the lowest possible attack surface. We can consider the goal as creating the digital equivalent of a Greek phalanx. So examples of attack surface reduction. Now that we have understood the concept behind an attack surface reduction, let's identify the attack vectors that could be used against Santa's infrastructure. Let's help McSkidy devise a Greek phalanx defense to minimize the attack surface. So we can close the ranks. Santa's website was defaced earlier. This is like one of the first tasks that we had. When investigating that attack, McSkidy found that an SSH port was open on the server hosting the website. This led to the attacker being able to use the port to gain entry. McSkidy has since closed this port, so by closing port 22, which is SSH, that means that that method of entry is now closed to the attacker. The only way that they can get in is now through port 80 or whatever the website's hosted on, and it's just limiting that extra entry point. So you can put up shields. Although SSH port was protected by a password, the password wasn't strong enough to resist brute forcing attempts. McSkidy implemented a stronger password policy to make brute forcing more difficult. Moreover, a timeout would also lock out the user after 5 incorrect attempts, making brute force attacks more expensive and less feasible. We can control the flow of information, so McSkidy was informed by her team about the GitHub repository that contained sensitive information. This included some credentials. The information could be an attack vector to Santa's infrastructure. This information was made private to block the attack vector. Moreover, the best practices were established to ensure the credentials and other sensitive information are not committed to GitHub repositories. So they are now hiding what was already public. So this is only a partial measure. It means that stuff that they add after the public repo was already public, because people could have forked it or done anything in the interim. But yeah, hopefully now in the future their GitHub won't see any more publicly visible code being submitted. But then on top of that, they've added in this extra section so that secrets don't get published. So there's like an additional layer of CI/CD control that's saying when a secret's detected in the commit, it should block the commit and it doesn't get published. So beware of deception. Another attack vector used to intrude into Santa's network was phishing emails. McSkidy identified that no phishing protection was enabled, which led to all emails landing in the inbox of a Santa's employee. McSkidy enabled phishing protection on Santa's email server to filter out spoofed and phished emails. All emails identified as phishing or spoofed were dropped, and they didn't reach the inbox of Santa's employees. So again, this is the key one, is you don't solve everything with phishing attacks, phishing testing. You solve it by stopping it reaching the employees in the first place. Then we can prepare for countering human error. So the phishing email that targeted Santa's employees contained a document containing malicious macros. To mitigate the risk of malicious macro-based documents compromising Santa's infrastructure, McSkidy disabled macros on end-user machines and used by Santa's employees to avoid malicious macro-based attacks. Now, this wasn't necessarily true for the task. We actually uploaded an exe document that got clicked. So it's the same kind of thing, but yeah, also don't click on sketchy executables. And then strengthening every soldier. McSkidy wanted the attack surface reduced from every endpoint's point of view. So far, she's taken steps to strengthen the network as a whole. For strengthening each endpoint, they took the help of Microsoft's attack surface reduction rules. So we can take a look at that. Through these rules, though these rules were built into the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint product, she took help from these rules and created a similar set of rules for their own EDR platform. So we've got. So just some examples of the attack types: block abuse by exploited vulnerable signed drivers. Block Adobe Reader from creating child processes. Block executable content from within email clients. So that would have stopped the attack that we tested for. Block potentially obfuscated scripts. Block Office apps from creating executable content. Block persistence through WMI. Yeah, there's some good ones. So make the defense invulnerable. To further strengthen the infrastructure, McSkidy has carried out a vulnerability scan, highlighting some vulnerabilities in the internet-facing infrastructure. McSkidy has patched these vulnerabilities found on Santa's internet-facing infrastructure to avoid exploitation. After implementing these steps, McSkidy was a little relieved. However, she understood that though her attack surface was reduced, she still needed to be vigilant to avoid any incidents. Come back tomorrow and see what other steps McSkidy has taken to strengthen her defences. See ya! So we follow the instructions in the attached static site to help McSkidy reduce her attack surface against the Yeti. Use the flag as an answer to complete the task. So, I'm guessing we don't need a terminal. We can... Is it a split screen view one? Yes, it is. So, click View Site. It should load up. There we go. It's getting shot in the head. So, it's time to save Elf McSkidy from Bandit Yeti. Correct answers will add shields and protect them from the Bandit Yeti's attacks. Add 6 shields to protect McSkidy fully. Only you can save her now. Match the attack vector with a relevant ASR action by moving the ASR action to the correct row in the right column. So, the attack vector is Bandit Yeti has identified an open SSH port on Santa's web server. And for that, we...
Thank you for the follow.
Thank you for the follow.
Sansatisco says.
Sansatisco.
Translated from Spanish.
It's going well, thank you. How are you? So we should have blocked the port. So there we go. Unnecessary ports are closed to avoid attack attempts. Then we have a document file with malicious macros is opened by the user. So we should be blocking macros or some security policies that are implemented to block macros. There we go. Some sense.
Question for you.
Fire away. I'm waiting. I'll keep doing this while you type. So some sensitive data is related to Santa's server is found on a file sharing website. So we should have some kind of DLP or like brute forcing. Looks like sensitive data from the file sharing site is removed to avoid Bandit Yeti taking advantage of the data.
What would you define the universe as, or the space? Matter infinite.
The what? What would I define the universe as, or the space? Just space. It's all the things.
Christy says.
That's a pretty deep question. Right, so spoofed phishing emails are sent to Santa's employees. We have that phishing protection is enabled. There we go.
Cheeto Bandleto says.
Pseudo profound nonsense.
Yeah. Password brute forcing attacks is attempted on Santa's attack. So this is password policies. Santa, as employee, finds a USB flash drive in the parking lot after he plugs in his computer. Malware installs on the machine. It's the last one. App Blocker is deployed on the network-wide block execution of unknown, non-whitelisted applications. So McSkidy's got all 6 shields. So we've done that. We've got the flag, attack surface reduced, so we can submit that. What's this all about? Attack. While the attack surface reduction helps, there is always a danger of a successful attack. Reducing attack surface to stop user installs a dubious software from the internet. Right, so if you'd like to study cyber defense more, why not start with the threat and vulnerability management module? That is a great suggestion. I think I've done it. Yeah, well, I've done 2 of them. But I haven't done the paid ones. So yeah, that's something to do in the future. But there we go, so we can close that. Close the site. We've only got 2 more days. So yeah, we'll be back for tomorrow's. How is everyone else getting on with this?